everyone loves Phainon. And I, as a real Phainon simp, got his CT1 in his last run, with a bit of difficulty. But there is one problem. I am missing his best teammate. That's right, Seridra. And since she's running in this patch, I'm not going only for easier Seridra. No, that would be too simple. I want to make the best E2 in the world. And with that goal in mind, we obviously have to get Sydra's E1 that does two things. 60% defense ignore and 2 energy to the teammate that receives her skill buff, which would be bad for a normal character, but thanks to Phainon Trace that gives him a core flame whenever he gains an energy point, it actually is to get 2 core flames per Syndra skill instead of only 1. And what better way to see how big of an improvement Syndra is than trying to not only kill an arbitration, but also recycle it with this team. So without further ado, enjoy. Okay, so my goal for this video is to try a few different teams in MOC and anomaly arbitration to see how big the difference is between teams with Syndra and those without her. So I decided on the following teams. Also, I will talk about Summer Robin for Final in a future video, but the short version is, in my opinion, she is not really worth it unless you need the damage increase, since she doesn't synergize that well with him. And I'm sure we'll get better supports in the future that will give Final more buffs that he needs, like a base speed increase. I won't even talk about how much I despise Robin for being the most boring character of all time, and sorry, I got off track. Anyways, so the teams are a Phainon team with Seridra, E2 Sparkle, and RMC / Blade. We will talk about Blade a bit later. A more cost-friendly team with Seridra, Bronya, and RMC. And finally, a team without Seridra but with Sparkle, RMC, and Bronya / Ningyun. And before anyone says, but where's the sustain team? No, we are not using Phainon with a sustain. Any self-respecting Phainon fan will not do that to the GOAT. My stats for Phainon for this test were not excellent. I didn't even use the IC set on Phainon, which is his new best in class set, until the last few rounds. I know, I'm a fake fan. And I use Scholar, which is just a bad set for him, but we will talk about that later. First off, let's talk about the premium team, which had full legal plus van walk on Seridra and Sparkle, with Seridra on DDD and Sparkle under Stature or DDD depending on the fight. The last slot is a bit more difficult though, because while Blade does give very good buffs and is very hot, there is one big problem with him. That's right, he gives Phainon no core flame points, which makes getting his ultimate almost impossible. So in the later runs, I decided to switch to RMC using this set. RMC gives him a core flame on every meme action advance, plus 2 more because of Phainon using his skill after meme action advance. So yeah, RMC is the undisputed GOAT. And the difference between Blade and RMC is actually not even that big. Both teams obviously perform pretty well, doing an average of about 1.4 million per meteor against Graphia, who has 40% physical rates. Getting a consistent 1 cycle on both Graphia and Sparks in MOC, and a 2 cycle on Graphia and AA. I'm sure if I had used IC on Phainon, this team would have been able to 2 cycle on at least MOC Graphia. My main advice for speed tuning in this team is to have your Sparkle be a bit faster than Seridra, because thanks to Phainon's technique, Seridra will be very close to getting her first start with only one of Phainon's skill, which will allow you to get energy faster compared to having to waste Seridra's first turn getting her first start, which will also let you get off an extra DD. All hail DD. The problem is though that getting this speed tuning with Sparkle is quite hard, since she only advances Phainon by 50%. So you either have to make Sparkle way faster than Seridra, or make Phainon have a bit of extra speed to make him active for Seridra. But even without the best speed tuning, this team still performs really well. With you on Seridra, this team becomes even better, since you are able to get your ult consistently thanks to the extra core flame from Seridra's skill, plus the 60% defense reduction helping quite a lot to Phainon's personal damage. Getting my Sparksy and the Graphia mostly clears to a very consistent zero cycle. And as for A, I was able to get the zero cycle without any major issues, after I figured out the best strategy. I still hate Phainon's meteor bounce though, genuinely traumatizing. I'd give this team a solid 9.5 out of 10. Small issues like Phainon ideally dealing a bit more damage, plus having to waste a Seridra skill dupe on getting his ult again does feel pretty bad, but can be solved by getting E2 Siren, which lets him stay in his ult infinitely. Up next, we have a team for the people that either don't have Sparkle for some reason, or are looking for lower cost clears. You filthy little tryhard. I'm not joking, this team does very well. Obviously, it has one big weakness, that being no Sparkle, which means you actually have to think about your skill point consumption. But Brunya's damage deal buff plus Sacerdos, alongside RMC's through increased damage increase and Setra's skill copy, make this team pretty usable, being able to even get the zero cycle on Graphia. Most of my testing with this team was with E1 Seridra, but most of the kills I did, including the Graphia one, can be easily done with her at E0. If you have it, you need to restart like 1000 times. Also, I want to quickly talk about the biggest fraud of Phainon relic sets ever, Scholar. Now, I do like Scholar for every character besides Phainon, because you'd think, okay, because of how Phainon's kit works, you would get a whole 45% skill damage buff for the entire duration. But for some ungodly reason, the 25% increase only applies to the first meteor, so you only get a standard 20% skill damage buff. So don't ever use this set over Waste Rider or IC, it's way worse. Also, for the other Phainon mains, I've seen some misinformation about IC. That it's only better on E2 Phainon, which is just false. IC is actually better than Waste Rider at even E0. No idea what Phainon main has him at E0 at this point though. So yeah, go farm IC now. Anyways, now that I'm done slandering Scholar, let's talk about the speed tuning. The speed tuning for this team is pretty similar to the speed tuning for Celadra and Sparkle. Just make Brunia a bit faster than Celadra and you're good to go. And it's also easier to speed tune since Brunia's action advance is 100% compared to Sparkle's 50%, so you don't have to do any additional speed tuning for Phainon. As I mentioned earlier, I did use Tracedos on Brunia instead of Eagle simply because it takes 20,000 deals for Brunia to get her second ult, and we are professional zero cycles after all. Same reason as to why I used her signature icon over 3D, since she only gets one ult in the first cycle. And the extra skill points plus damage increase on ult are very important, since the SP generation of this team is equivalent to the number of pulls I had after I saw Emil for the first time. I'm down bad for Emil, I'm sorry. That plus you won't get to use her skill again for final second ult, so you are purely coping that Brunia's ult buff is good enough. This team benefits a lot from E1 Celadra since it's way hard to get core flames without Sparkle, because as I said, you'll only see a skill point once every icon buff, so you'll not be able to use Celadra skill every turn. Compared to Sparkle, where you can literally just spam the skill button and you're still not gonna run out of skill points. So my final score for the cost-friendly team is a solid 8 out of 10. My rating might have been a bit higher if I didn't only have 91% crit rate, which I know seems high, but purely because of this 91% crit rate, I had to reset my Graphia run way more than I should have. I do think this team works, but most people should have Sparkle from the free character selector, so I wouldn't go out of my way to use this team, unless you're using a Sparkle and for example an Archer. This is the team I used before I got Celadra, and it does work pretty well. I would personally recommend using, and I'm not joking, E1 Robin here, instead of either RMC or Bronya, but I wouldn't go out of my way to get her over Celadra, since Celadra is still better. This team can get a decent 1 cycle on Graph NMOC and a 2 or 3 cycle on Graph NA, so I would say it's pretty good. The thing with the new Robin is kind of the same as the old Robin. I still don't get her over Celadra, but if you plan on using other teams besides Phainon, she's the better pull, obviously. We will talk more about Robin in the future, so don't worry. And with that, we are done. So, in conclusion, I think Celadra is extremely good for Phainon, and the that will make him an absolute monster. If we are talking purely for Phainon, Celadra, especially with her E1, is better than getting Robin, and you'll 100% see some big increases. But if you plan on using Robin in other teams as well, especially in Remembrance, then Robin is a better pull meta-wise. Personally, I'm not getting Robin since I am Robin's #1 hater, and I can hardly get 0 cycles with Phainon and E1 Celadra, even with budget characters like RMC and Bronya. So all in all, if you love Phainon, you need to get Celadra. If you want Phainon to be even better, and you have Remembrance as well, or any other teams that can be used with Robin, I will get Robin as well. But either way, thank you guys for watching. The next video will be about Robin, so see you guys tomorrow. Have a beautiful day. Bye bye.